What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more iOS 17.2 features and changes. We're going to talk about why Apple is still against sideloading, why the Apple Vision Pro is delayed again, iOS 17.1.2 coming soon, another crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to stay updated with all things Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Also, make sure to check out the Apple Den newsletter. It is my free newsletter that is sent out every week covering the latest Apple news. And of course, we do have interactive polls on there as well. Okay, so let's start by talking about iOS 17.2, the next major iOS release. We are currently on beta 3. We should be seeing a new beta next week. But I do want to discuss a few things here. And the first thing I want to discuss is a new animation that I've not talked about yet for alarms in 17.2. So I did a screen recording earlier, and you can see that when the alarm goes off, the little alarm glyph icon there is shaking. So before on iOS 17.1 and earlier, that did not move. It was just a stationary image, but now we have more of an animation that comes out of the dynamic island when you have an alarm going off. I also wanted to mention that I've really just started seeing the catch-up arrow that Apple introduced with iOS 17 here in 17.2. So you can see I have a group chat right here, and we have the arrow on the right side because I missed a couple of messages, while I was not looking at my phone, and I can tap on that to go to the last read message or the first unread message, whichever way you want to look at it. So for some reason, I never saw that throughout iOS 17, like not on 17, 17.1 or anything. I just started seeing that in 17.2, and I've noticed that it's there consistently now every single time I miss out on, some text messages in a group chat. Now, also, if we head into our settings and go to our iCloud settings and then go to show all and then to messages in iCloud, I really just started noticing there are some new settings in here. And I maybe didn't notice because I'm using my phone where I don't sync the messages, but if I pull up my main phone here, we now have a manual sync now button, so you can manually sync just your messages in the iCloud and nothing else, along with everything else that you see right here. So all of these are nice. I do like seeing also how many messages are in iCloud. Like I have 291,000 messages in iCloud. That's crazy. Let me know how many you have, because that seems like a lot to me, but I just like this section here. It's been updated and it seems a lot more useful now. And of course, the thing that a lot of people are getting very excited about 17.2 for is the collaborative playlists. So this is something that a lot of people have been wanting for Apple Music for years now. And I've even had like real life friends texting me, asking me when it's coming, so a lot of people are excited for this. And you can see here's an example of a collaborative playlist. You can see my face there to the left of the song showing that I added this to the playlist. And you also had these little people icon up top. If you tap on that, it will show, who the collaborators are. You can stop the collaboration. You have the ability to approve a collaborator in case somebody else maybe invites them or what. So all of that is coming in 17.2, and it works really good now with beta 3. However, the one thing that does not work very well, and the thing I hope Apple fixes with 17.2, the final release, is inside of Safari. And if we go down here to clear history and website data, that animation is atrocious. It makes me feel like I'm on an old laggy iPhone. So I hate that, although it is good that we have, our device now remembers the last selection that we chose here, like today and yesterday is now selected, whereas the default is just last hour. So it remembers what you press the previous time, but this animation has got to go. Now, as far as the performance goes, performance is fine for me. I've not had one single issue on my main device. So I use my 15 Pro Max on 17.2 beta 3 as my daily device. I've not had any issues whatsoever in terms of performance. Everything performs just fine. No random resprings, no bugs at all. So 17.2 is looking pretty good so far. And you can see the updated Geekbench scores here as well. Not bad. Again, those don't really tell the full story, but I like keeping you guys updated with the latest Geekbench scores. And then as far as the battery life goes, the last 24 hours you can see here, not terrible. You can see just a steady decline there, but I've not charged my phone once throughout the day. So it has lasted me all day, which is nice. That's been, a constant here with iOS 17 in general. So 17.2 is not a huge upgrade over 17.1, but, battery life does seem to be a bit better than previous versions. Of course, depending on how much you use the device. You can see for the past week, I've been using my phone a lot more than I usually do. And that's, partly why I haven't been uploading videos. I've been distracted and doing too much on my phone. But you can see here, battery life over the last 10 days, not too bad. You can see I did go over 100% a couple of times there, whereas I did not do so in the previous week, but you can see my usage is also up right there. So that's not really indicative of bad battery life. Battery life for me is just fine on 17.2. Let me know your experience though down in the comments below. I'm always curious to see how battery life is for you specifically. Okay, so now let's talk about what to expect next from Apple. So next week, we're gonna see iOS 17.1.2. Now this is going to be a public release. This is not a beta. 17.1.2 is going to be released most likely next week. This was found in the analytics on Mac Rumors and they reported this. So we should see that next week on the week of the 27th. My guess is that we're gonna see that on the 27th, but of course we could see it anytime in the first half of next week. Now, also we should be seeing iOS 17.2 beta 4. So I do think we're going to see a beta 4 before the RC. So we should see beta 4 next week, most likely on Tuesday, the 28th. And then after that, we should see RC on the week of December 4th. And then the final release on the week of December 11th, most likely right there on December 11th. Now, real quick, I did want to mention why we're going to see a 17.1.2. So of course, when we have a double point update, that means it's going to be simply a bug fix update. We're not going to see any new features, but there are quite a few bugs that Apple does have to patch with this update, and that's why I think we're going to see that, even though we're getting 17.2 just a couple of weeks later. So the first thing I want to mention is the Wi-Fi issues. A lot of people have had Wi-Fi issues ever since 17.1, and Apple did not address it with 17.1.1. So you should expect to see Wi-Fi issues fixed with that new update next week. And then also some big news that made headlines was wireless charging being broken in GM vehicles. So if you had a vehicle from GM, a lot of times wireless charging just simply would not work after you updated to 17.1.1. So Apple aims, I'm sure, to fix that with this next update as well. And then something else that I'm not really sure how widespread it is the device name being reset after updating to 17.1 or 17.1.1. Had a couple of users on Twitter or X and also on my Instagram tell me that their device name was reset to just their name's iPhone, even though they had a custom name before. So that may potentially be another small bug that's fixed, and I'm sure we will see other things that we haven't even seen reported yet be fixed with that update. So just expect that next week. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news, and let's start with sideloading. So if you didn't watch last week's episode, go back and watch that. All the information is still relevant, and there was a lot in that video. So go check that out because we talked about sideloading. That was our first foray into talking about sideloading, which, quick refresher, if you did not know, sideloading is coming to EU iPhones in the beginning of 2024 next year. And when people saw this, a lot of people started thinking that, oh, Apple is now pro sideloading. Apple is for sideloading, but that's not really the case. And here's why. In a new report from The Independent, Apple's head of security engineering and architecture sounded off on basically saying how he does not agree that sideloading is going to give users more choice about what applications they use and how they get them. He was saying that sometimes business software or personal software might only be available outside of the App Store and being alternatively distributed. And he said in that case, those users don't have a choice to get that software from a distribution mechanism that they trust. And then he went on to say, we do not see ourselves as set against governments. That is not what any of this work is about, but we do see ourselves as having a duty to defend our users from threats, whether common or in some cases truly grave. So the whole report is very interesting. So if you want to see the nitty-gritty, that is linked down in the description below, but it's pretty interesting to see Apple's stance on sideloading and alternative app stores, because the reality is nothing's going to be as secure as Apple's own app store. So you know how Apple said that the Apple Vision Pro is coming in early 2024, and a lot of people speculated that maybe January is when we'll see the $3,500 headset. Well, now, according to Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, it looks like March might be potentially the earliest that we're going to see this Apple Vision Pro headset. He said Apple planned for the Apple Vision Pro to be released in January 2024. However, the company is still preparing distribution plans for the product and doing final device testing. He now expects the device to debut sometime around March, and he says to expect Apple to host another media event in the spring ahead of the product's release to show off apps and features that were not presented at the Worldwide Developers Conference unveiling. And as you know from watching my videos, iOS 17.2 Beta 2 introduced the spatial video feature where you can record video from your iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, and basically you can watch that in spatial, in in space pretty much when you have the Apple Vision Pro headset on. You're going to be able to see it in kind of like a 3D environment and see different things around you. So that's pretty cool. And that also tells us that we are getting close. It's still not right around the corner just yet, but I'm hoping to see it sometime in the spring. So in last week's episode of Apple Weekly, we talked about how RCS is coming to the iPhone next year. And that's a big deal, by the way, a huge deal. However, Nothing, the phone company, launched a service or a application called Nothing Chats before that was officially announced. And this application would allow you to send and receive iMessage style messages through the same servers as actual iPhone users. And it does this through a third-party service called Sunbird, which logs you into a server farm that spoofs your Android device as an iPhone. And I mean, just reading that, it seems so obvious why you would never want to do that. And sure enough, just a week later, that application got pulled from the Google Play Store for major privacy and security concerns. And this is because you had to enter your Apple ID credentials into a third-party service, something everybody should know that you should absolutely, under no circumstance, ever do. And sure enough, pretty much right once Nothing announced this application, the security researchers got to work and they found a lot of glaring issues and major vulnerabilities. I mean, some of these were laughable, like they used HTTP instead of HTTPS. That's something I didn't do in like 2015. So that alone is laughable, but also there were vulnerabilities that could allow attackers to intercept messages and media attachments sent through Sunbird. You know, a lot of this data was not even encrypted at all. It was just visible in plain sight, like everything you sent through their service. So it was just a total nightmare from a security and privacy standpoint, which I'm sure none of you, were foolish enough to do that, but it just seems crazy that this was even thought of as a good idea. So while there was hope for Android users to have blue bubbles and not be made fun of for having the green bubbles, it seems like that, that hope, that glimmer of hope was short-lived. But I just wanted to share this story because kind of just a reminder to never put your Apple credentials into a third-party service, and also the fact that RCS is going to eliminate a lot of services like this that have popped up over the years and that will pop up in the future. Because while RCS might not solve the green bubble versus blue bubble thing, I don't know if people are going to really make fun of Androids as much anymore, because a lot of the issues that we made fun of Androids and group chats for are going to be resolved and kind of solved with RCS. And then finally, let's talk about yet another crazy AirTag story. This is just going to be a quick and short one. I think this is the shortest news report I've ever seen on a story, period, not just an AirTag story, especially when I had a video to go along with it. But anyways, this latest one comes from a man in Nashville who stole several guitars from a rehearsal studio and then successfully sold them to a Guitar Center store. But what the thief or the Guitar Center did not know is that one of those guitar cases had an AirTag in it. So one of the owners of the guitars was able to track it down to the Guitar Center, and after police, I'm assuming, reviewed the security footage and they reviewed who brought those in, they were able to track him down and arrest him. And the reason I say assumed is because, like I said, this news article is super short, doesn't really give many details, but that is the crazy AirTag story because it's not something I've seen yet. The stolen guitars is a new one here on the channel, and I've been doing these for years. So that's pretty interesting, and just another reminder, like I say every week, put an AirTag in anything of value, anything that anybody would ever want to steal. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That is the latest in the world of Apple. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, I do have the Black Friday sale going on right now for all wallpaper collections on brandonbutch.com. So if you want to pick up the opulent wallpaper pack, which one of those wallpapers was the one I was using in today's video, you can get that now. It is 50% off, which is an amazing deal for 100 plus wallpapers. So if you want to get that, limited time, it ends on Monday. That is down in the description below. I really appreciate your support on that collection. It's been super successful thanks to you guys. But anyways, if you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's Apple Weekly episode. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys had a great happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you guys next week.